If you clicked on this video, you're likely aware of the rise of woke culture in mainstream media and Hollywood. There are a few perspectives on this. You might support this agenda, oppose it, or simply not care about it. Regardless of your stance, it's interesting to examine the rise of woke culture in Hollywood and the ongoing battle against it. In recent years, the entertainment industry has seen a heated debate over this so-called woke culture. From movie casting to red carpet events, this clash of ideologies has become a defining aspect of modern Hollywood. Where do you think this has led Hollywood in recent years? What might become of Hollywood if it continues this shift towards virtue signaling? Let's take a detailed look at this issue. To understand this clash in Hollywood, we first need to understand what the ideology of being woke has turned into in the context of modern-day Hollywood. We also need to consider what it ideally should have stopped at. Let's start by looking at where this all began.
How do you define wokeness? Because I hear people use the term all the time, and it means something different to everybody.
Well, again, I think it's this collection of ideas that are not building on liberalism, but very often undoing it. I mean, 5 years ago, Abraham Lincoln was not a controversial figure among liberals. We liked him. Now they take his name off schools and tear down his statues. Really? Lincoln isn't good enough for you?
Hollywood's engagement with social justice is not new. Historically, the film industry has mirrored cultural beliefs and biases. Early Hollywood was notorious for discriminatory practices, including racial segregation and gender discrimination. So when did this shift begin? However, the industry has also been a battleground for social change, with prominent figures and movements advocating for reform over the years. The civil rights movement, feminist activism, and LGBTQ+ rights campaigns have all influenced Hollywood's approach to representation and equality. It wasn't until the late 2010s that this excessive push for diversity and social justice became an important, though sometimes controversial, part of the industry's values. Hollywood's approach to social concerns changed dramatically in the early 21st century, partly due to the rise of social media and increased public awareness. Movements like #OscarsSoWhite and #MeToo highlighted issues of racial and gender inequity, calling for reforms in how the industry operates. Initially, the term woke had a much different meaning than it does in modern Bollywood. The term originated from African-American informal English and was used to describe a heightened awareness of social injustices. It has since evolved to encompass a broader spectrum of social and political activism. In Hollywood, being woke translates to advocating for more inclusive casting, addressing stereotypes about different ethnicities and races, and amplifying marginalized voices. So, how exactly has Hollywood responded to this woke agenda? Hollywood's response to this cultural shift has been varied. On one hand, many studios and filmmakers have actively embraced the call for diversity and inclusion. Sometimes, however, this effort is perceived as going too far. A notable example is the controversy surrounding the new Snow White film. The recent uproar over the casting of the new Snow White centers on accusations of wokeness and concerns about political agendas. Critics have argued that the film's casting choices, specifically the decision to cast Rachel Zegler, a Latina actress, as Snow White, deviate from the traditional European portrayal of the character. Not to forget some of the controversial remarks made by Rachel.
She's not going to be safe with the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign.
Fans who grew up with the original portrayal have expressed disappointment with these casting choices. They claim that this shift is part of a broader trend of woke culture, making adverse changes to classic stories to fit current diversity standards. However, this shift has caused a wide range of reactions. Supporters view the casting as a positive step towards inclusivity and representation. They find it to be a positive step towards the future of filmmaking. They argue that modern adaptations should reflect the diversity of today's society, and that casting choices should not be based solely on historical or racial accuracy. They believe that such changes can introduce the old classic stories to new generations. This will also promote a more inclusive mindset among younger audiences. This debate is essentially endless. What it underscores is a broader discussion about representation in the media. The balance between maintaining traditional narratives and embracing diversity continues to spark varied opinions and controversies on both sides. Movies like Black Panther and Crazy Rich Asians have celebrated underrepresented communities, while shows like Pose and The L Word have brought LGBTQ+ stories to the forefront. Award ceremonies reflect this shift by honoring movies and performances that break barriers and highlight current societal changes. This shift has been praised for providing a platform where everyone is welcome and for promoting a more inclusive industry. Emma Darcy has spoken about the relief they felt after coming out as a non-binary person, appreciating that there is indeed space for inclusivity in the industry.
Yeah, it just feels like such a relief, and it's good. I feel like the industry is changing slowly, so that feels very hopeful to me.
I think that's so special what you just said, because that level of relief, I think so many queer people can identify with that. Like that level of relief when you can say, this is who I am, and take it or leave it. And that's so powerful what you just said, and it's actually very emotionally touching hearing you say that, especially during Pride Month as well. And it's so amazing to have a queer actor in a huge show like this.
If there's one thing we can't ignore, then it is the growing backlash against what some people claim to be excessive political correctness. Critics feel that movies that are being made these days focus more on ticking all diversity boxes and virtue signaling than on actually telling some good stories. This backlash is just amplified more by a perception that traditional values and narratives are cast aside completely. There are many examples, such as the Snow White controversy we discussed earlier, which became quite a big deal when it was revealed, and that wasn't even all there was. There are many other high-profile cases like the criticism against Halle Bailey's casting as Ariel in Disney's The Little Mermaid, and the backlash against the all-female Ghostbusters reboot. These cases just highlight the tension between traditional expectations and new norms of society. This isn't the first time such cases have sparked outrage. Bailey being a black actress is a case to be considered. She faced widespread racist criticism after being cast as Ariel. Many critics openly voiced dissatisfaction that a drag queen was not cast in the role of Ursula, a character based on the drag artist Divine. Additionally, some who watched the 2023 Academy Awards regarded the film's on-stage marketing as one of the show's most embarrassing moments.
We're all human, and sometimes when you see any sort of like negativity directed towards you, it's gonna hurt your feelings regardless. But I think that I just focus on the positive and the beautiful reactions that I see of those little boys and girls. And I was talking to my grandparents a lot, and how monumental this is for them, who've been through times where my Nana, she had to drink from a different water fountain. She remembers seeing her mother in like the cotton field. It's very different now, but it's monumental for us during this time. And I'm just so grateful. And honestly, I'm like my experiences are way better than my grandparents. So I'm just grateful.
Yeah, you have.
The debate surrounding woke culture often intersects with discussions about its impact on creative freedom. On one side, some creators feel constrained by the pressure to go with the flow and to live up to contemporary social expectations. They argue that by mindlessly following these norms can limit their artistic expression and mess up their creativity, as they might avoid exploring certain themes or perspectives out of fear of backlash or criticism. For these individuals, the demand to be socially aware or politically correct can sometimes feel like a burden on their ability to freely explore and express ideas. While on the other hand, some creators view the rise of woke culture as an opportunity to innovate and expand storytelling. They argue that the push for inclusivity and social consciousness can lead to richer, more diverse narratives that reflect a broader range of human experiences. This perspective sees the pressure to meet modern social standards not as a limitation, but as a chance to push creative boundaries and develop stories that resonate with a wider audience. By integrating diverse perspectives and addressing contemporary issues, creators can engage in more meaningful and relevant storytelling, which would then ultimately contribute to a more inclusive and better cultural landscape. Projects such as Everything Everywhere All at Once and The Bear are prime examples of how contemporary creative work can incorporate diverse perspectives without sacrificing originality or depth. These examples demonstrate that it's possible to address age-old issues while pushing creative boundaries. Streaming services have had their fair share of significant role to play in this shift. They have become key players in the cultural change, offering platforms that are more flexible and viable for this diverse content, because they can actually take more risks. Unlike traditional networks, streaming platforms can take risks on projects that may not fit conventional molds, leading to a broader range of stories reaching audiences. Shows like Bridgerton and Sex Education illustrate how streaming services successfully integrate diverse representations, bringing them into mainstream media. These platforms have enabled greater experimentation and representation, reflecting a more varied and inclusive approach to content. Some claim that Hollywood is heading towards self-destruction by focusing excessively on race and gender, potentially dividing people further. They argue that this focus overshadows high-quality writing, acting, and direction. The notion is that if the industry truly wanted to be diverse, it would create excellent films with diverse actors, good stories, and genuine substance. Critics argue that Hollywood is using diversity as a shield, with some going as far as to say, if you hate this, you're racist, which they consider a flawed logic. They believe that poor quality films associated with woke themes lead to a belief that diversity itself is problematic. This just keeps on creating more and more complex challenges, as wokeness is not even the issue. Instead, the problem lies with other factors that impact how diversity is portrayed and received. People would be more accepting of gay, black, and transgender individuals if the films and characters depicted were genuinely good, like Blade, Alien, Terminator, and Django. Some argue that Hollywood is out of touch with reality, and it's just a place filled with wealthy, privileged individuals who are using diversity as a form of virtue signaling. Maybe the white guilt is getting to them. Disney, in particular, is often put on a gunpoint as a major offender. They have even been accused of damaging Hollywood's reputation. This is the current state of Hollywood. What are your thoughts on the shift towards woke culture? Do you believe it will eventually stifle creativity? Share your opinions in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you found it helpful. If you did, share this video with your friends. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for more updates. Until next time.